Howdy folks, it's your friend Fishing with Dom, and I'm going to talk to you today about wacky rigging with a jig head. Now, plain and simple, what a wacky rig jig head does is speed up the process on how you're fishing a straight tail worm. Let me tell you something real quick. I would not have done the dramatic sunglasses reveal if I wasn't confident when I said this that I'm a big time wacky rig angler. It's not hard to be good at wacky rigging, but there are people who are better with it than others. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit about using the jig head. And the jig head works great on any type of worm you want to wacky rig with. It doesn't have to be a straight tail, even cigar, Senko style of worm. Anything goes with wacky rigging. A lot of people get away from that, and anything goes with wacky rigging with a jig head. But I'm going to be using these Havoc money makers. I don't know if they still make the money maker. I'm going to use it. Gary Yamamoto, never lets you down. The Berkley Havoc Flat Dog. I'm not 100% sure if they still make the Flat Dog, but I'm going to be fishing with it. And this is one of my all-time favorite baits to wacky rig. The 5-inch Berkley Gulp sinking minnow. Very dense, very scented. The classic Yum Dinger, you almost can't beat it. For $3 you get 10 worms you can wacky rig with, catch a few fish with them. But lately my favorite wacky rigging worm has been this Berkley Powerbait General. And these are all just general worms you can fish with on this wacky rig jig. But just because they're new and they're clean, I'm going to be demonstrating with the Yamamoto. And I thought it was real cool. This was gifted to me this recent Christmas. It's just a black worm. I don't think I have anything just black, so I'm going to be playing with my darker colors in 2019, and I'm going to be bass fishing a lot more at night with darker colors. But let's get down to the business here. I have my wacky jig of choice. This is a 3/16 ounce weedless VMC wacky jig. Has this thin little piece of wire coming off of it. Whenever I'm fishing the heavy wacky rig like this on the jig head, I like to trim these off because I'm fishing around a lot of rock and a lot of structure that isn't going to be needed. If I was in northern Michigan, I would keep this wire on because I do fish around a decent amount of wood up in the Charlevoix area when I go visit my good friend Dave. But concept with the wacky rig jig, it's the same. It's the same as if you're rigging it weedless. You just hook that bait right in the middle, just like that, maybe a little bit over. I'm a perfectionist when it comes to hooking baits in the right places. Just like that, you're going to hook your bait in the middle. And what this weight does, it speeds up how you can fish a wacky rig. And I tell you what, in the summertime, when it's really, really slow, and I'm using the wacky rig as one of my go-tos, my magic trick up the sleeve, being very, very slow in fishing until what seems like hours will go by doing nothing with a weightless wacky rig, it can be mind-grueling. But if you want to cover a lot of water and give this worm a lot more action, and when you're fishing deeper too, try a wacky rig jig head. You cast it on out there. I fish these Saginaw Bay, 20 feet or so for smallmouth bass come July, August. I can cover a lot of ground, and I can get a lot of action with this weight pulling both ends of this worm down to the bottom. I really dig fishing like this, but I only fish with wacky jig heads in certain areas. A lot of the times on my home lake, there's no need to do it, but unless I am fishing a deeper drop-off or a deeper portion of the lake and I really want to play with what's going on down there. But I haven't done that in a long time. A lot of the times when I'm wacky rigging, it's pretty shallow water. But in river situations, especially where there might be a deep pool, there might be a little bit of current, throw this jig head. Deeper parts of the lake, throw it. But wherever you want to, put this bait, you can. The wacky rigging jig head speeds up a wacky rig. There's no other way to better explain it. I've caught a few fish with it, and when times are tough and you need a bite, sometimes, simpler is better. The wacky rig, it's pretty simple, but if you just think you fish it on a jig head just like this one, it changes absolutely everything. Now when you're casting the wacky rig as a jig, it's not that different if you're fishing it from a jig standpoint. You're going to be casting your bait out there, do your thing, and the entire duration of the cast, you're going to keep your line on a semi-slack line. Not too tight, because it'll cause the jig to pendulum forward and cover too much ground a little too fast, but not totally no slack in the line. Just a little, but nothing too much. If you're fishing with a real super sensitive line like I am, this is Berkley Fireline, the new 8 carrier braid they have out right now. They just released the X9 and the X5 braids. I'm really excited to try those. But Fireline, a small 10 or 8 pound fluorocarbon, you want something really, really sensitive, because when you're making a far cast and you're fishing deep, you're going to want to know exactly when that fish picks up that bait, because a lot of the times when I'm resorting to fishing with the Wacky Rig jig head, times are tough. They're tougher than the 2008 recession, I tell you what, when I bust this bad boy out. But it always seems to work for me when the smallmouth aren't picking up, or when I'm having a hard time getting bait in front of their face when it comes to fishing in a river situation. But you're going to cast it on out there and just work it back on a semi-slack line and just pop it every so often. Just pick it up and drop it and bring it back. You don't have to wait for that worm just to flutter to the bottom like you would with it being weightless. It's going down. It took me a while to get used to fishing with these bad lads, but I tell you what, if you go out and pick up some of these Wacky Rigging jig heads, doesn't have to be this VMC right here, you're going to have a lot of success. I recommend using sizes an 1/8, a 1/16, 3/16. I don't know if they make them up to quarters, but if you're fishing a little deeper and you want to put the 1/4 ounce jig head on there, by all means, go for it. It's a game changer, and they're well worth their weight in gold. But if you have used a Wacky Rig jig head before and have any experience with it, please let me know in the comment section below. I'd love to hear your thoughts about them. But if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please let me know below or on my social media handles at Fishing with Dom, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. I'd greatly appreciate it. But until next time, I hope you take it easy. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.